Good afternoon, golfing fans. Welcome back to the channel, proudly sponsored by betting.co.uk. So I'm just back with my selections for this week's tour event, but we're only going to be focusing on one event in this episode, and that's going to be the South African Open Championship. Of course, we do have the Hero World Challenge, and we've also got the Australian Open this week, but I struggled to find too much value in either of those events, so I'm just going to be focusing on the DP World Tour's South African Open Championship. Now, it takes place at Blair Athol Golf Estate over a whopping 8,161 yards. And we do have quite a similar lineup to last week's event at the Joburg Open, but there is a bit more significance to this week's event as the top three finishers will find themselves an automatic spot in the Open Championship next year to be taking place at Royal Troon. So I narrowed it down to 4 selections for the event. I'm going to be bringing you 2 of those selections in this episode. And then, of course, the other 2 are over in my group chat. And if you'd like to go over and join me there is a link in the description below. And for the year, we are just under 1,000 points for the year. So hopefully going to try and finish this year nice and strong before we head into 2024. And we've still got 2 or 3 events to get stuck into. So my first selection for this week is going to be Xander Lombard at 20 to 1, 1.25 points each way for the 8 places that are available. And he actually had a really good round last week. He finished tied 4th and is seemingly coming into form at this sort of time of the season. And even though he hasn't actually won yet on the DP World Tour, he is still ranked 148th in the world. So he's definitely capable, and he shot 4 really solid rounds in the 60s. Now, this is a really long course as well, so you would be looking for those that are quite long off the tee, but it's not necessarily a requirement. For me, what you do require here is going to be a player that has a big draw bias with their longer game, because if you're finding the right spots on the fairway, you are actually going to be making up plenty of distance. But those that are hitting the sort of power fades in this week's event may actually find this a little bit more difficult. So ignore the stats. You want to find yourself a nice ball, a nice driver off the tee with a nice ball flight, and those that are going to be hitting predominantly a high draw through this field. Xander Lombard obviously fits that bill very nicely. He's coming into form, and the South African players do tend to play really well in their own events. So Xander Lombard at 20 to 1, a player in form at the moment, I think is a really good opportunity to get stuck into this week. Selection number 2 is world number 324, Jax Kruijswijk at 45 to 1, a point each way for the 8 places available. And he is another player that actually finished in the tie for 4th with Xander Lombard last week. But he is a player that's absolutely thriving, coming into this event in really good form, having finished 3 really good events on the Challenge Tour, finishing 12th, 22nd and 11th, and then, of course, 4th last week in the Joburg Open. He's another player that's plenty long off the tee. He also hits a nice high draw, which, again, as I've mentioned, is a very good attribute to have around Blair Athol Golf Estate. It really will help you out if you've got a player with a draw bias on your side. And he's been pretty decent off the tee for the most part as well. So I just think, again, coming into this in form, he's probably going to give himself plenty of opportunities again to go forward with this season, especially this week. And as mentioned, that draw is very, very important this week. Make no mistake about it. All of those that are going to be looking at the stats are going to be trying to find you plenty of length off the tee, and obviously good players with the irons hitting those greens in regulation. But honestly, you really just need to make sure first and foremost that you find yourself a player hits a high draw off the tee, because it's going to be making this course a lot shorter for them and inevitably will give them more opportunities at birdie. So there's my 2 main selections for this week. Again, quite small on the point system because I'm not massively keen on too much in this field. Again, I have got 4 selections which I think are going to do very well for us, but obviously I will have some stronger selections as the new year starts to come into place. Okay, thanks for tuning in. If you're new to my channel, please do hit the subscribe button. It really does help me out a great deal. If you'd like to come over and join the group chat, there is a link in the description below. We've got over 300 members in there at the moment and counting. And obviously there's some extra content in there every single day for you to get stuck into as well. But thanks everyone for tuning in, and I'll see you all again next week with some more selections on the golf.